Imagine a scenario for me, just for a second. You walk into one of the world's most powerful, most buttoned-up financial institutions.
Right.
You know, the kind of place with the marble floors, the hushed conversations, where a decimal point in the wrong spot doesn't just get you fired, it's a global headline.
It's the definition of trust needs verification. Absolutely.
Exactly. And then you find out that this institution, let's just call it the most prestigious investment bank on Wall Street, has just handed the keys to their accounting and compliance departments over to an AI.
It sounds like the plot of a sci-fi thriller. Or, maybe a cautionary tale we'd be reading about in 20 years after the financial system collapsed.
Right. But here's the thing. As of yesterday, February 6th, 2026, that is not fiction. That is the new reality at Goldman Sachs.
It's a massive, massive shift. And we need to be really clear here. We aren't just talking about a bank buying a ChatGPT subscription for their employees to, write emails faster.
Yeah.
Goldman Sachs has officially partnered with the AI startup Anthropic to automate some of the most high-stakes, complex, and frankly, terrifyingly precise roles inside the bank.
This is huge. And to really get our heads around it, we're doing a deep dive into an exclusive report from CNBC that was published just yesterday. It has some incredibly revealing interviews with Goldman's Chief Information Officer, Marco Argenti.
And the mission for this deep dive is, well, it's pretty specific. We need to look past the Goldman uses AI headline. We have to understand how they're doing it, because they are moving way beyond simple coding assistance. They're building what they call autonomous agents.
Agents that can reason.
That's it. Agents that can reason through incredibly complex financial regulations. And we really need to talk about what that signals for the future of white-collar work.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the word partnership, it gets thrown around a lot in tech news, usually just means company A bought software from company B.
Right, and they put out a press release to boost the stock.
Exactly. But this feels different.
It is fundamentally different. This was not a transaction. It was an integration. The report details how Anthropic engineers have actually been embedded inside Goldman Sachs for the past 6 months.
Embedded is a strong word. It implies they're not just there to install a server and then leave.
No. Think desk-to-desk collaboration. You have these Silicon Valley engineers sitting right next to Wall Street compliance officers.
Wow.
They've been co-developing these systems side by side. And that distinction matters because it tells you they're building something custom. And Marco Argenti, the CIO, he was very specific about the terminology. He refuses to call them chatbots.
I did catch that. He called them autonomous agents.
Yeah.
Now, to a layperson, that might just sound like marketing, right? Like calling a used car pre-owned.
Yeah.
But in the tech world, that's a huge leap in capability, isn't it?
It's a canyon of a difference. Let's break it down. A chatbot is reactive. You type, "What's the capital of France?" and it says Paris. It waits for you. It has no agency.
It's a fancy search engine, basically.
An autonomous agent is proactive. It's goal-oriented. You give it an objective like, audit this entire trade log for discrepancies against the new SEC ruling. And it figures out the steps itself.
So it breaks the task down, runs the queries, checks its own work.
And delivers the result. It doesn't ask you what to do next. It just does the job.
Argenti actually used a really striking analogy. He described the AI not as a tool, but as a digital coworker.
Which is just fascinating phrasing. A coworker implies agency. It implies you assign it a task and you trust it to go off and do it on its own.
And we're not talking about scheduling meetings here. The scope is, he calls it scaled, complex, and process-intensive professions.
And he mentioned 2 major areas right off the bat, accounting for trades and transactions and client vetting.
Which, if you know anything about banking, that is the engine room.
Oh, absolutely. Trade reconciliation, that is the definition of high-stakes grunt work. You have to make sure every number matches perfectly across millions of transactions.
If you mess that up, the regulators come knocking and the fines are just astronomical.
Precisely. And client onboarding isn't just fill up this form. It's know your customer laws, anti-money laundering checks. It's dense regulatory forensic work. It takes judgment.
And Argenti says they're in the early stages, but he expects these agents to launch soon.
Soon. And the goal, he said, is to drastically collapse the time these functions take. Collapse the time.
So here's the part I really want to get into. How did they get here? Because historically, the narrative around generative AI, your GPTs, your Claudes, it's been that it's creative.
Right. It's a right-brained mimic.
It writes poems, it drafts emails, it hallucinates, it makes stuff up. So how did we get from AI as a chaotic artist to AI as a precise forensic accountant? There had to be a stepping stone.
There was. And it started with coding.
The report mentioned something called Devin.
Yes. So early last year, Goldman started playing around with an autonomous AI coder named Devin. It's now available to all their engineers. But that experiment, it led to this massive aha moment for the executives.
Because they realized the AI, specifically Anthropic's Claude model, was just really, really good at coding.
But ask yourself why. Why is an AI good at coding?
Well, the common assumption is just pattern matching, right? It's seen a billion lines of code on GitHub, so it just predicts the next word.
That's what they thought. Autocorrect on steroids. But Argenti had this key insight, he asked. Is Claude good at coding just because it knows the syntax? Or is it good because it can reason through complex problems step by step, applying logic?
I see where you're going with this. Coding isn't just vocabulary, it's logic structures. It's if this, then that, unless this other thing happens.
Exactly. It's structural. It involves parsing huge amounts of documentation, code libraries, APIs, and applying strict rules to get a specific outcome. You can't hallucinate in code. If you do, the program crashes. It requires absolute logical precision.
Okay.
Now strip away the programming language. What other profession relies on strict rules, massive documentation, and a zero tolerance for hallucinations?
It sounds exactly like accounting.
Bingo. Accounting and compliance are the same cognitive process as coding. You parse massive amounts of data ledgers, legal docs, and you apply strict rules like GAAP or SEC regulations to make sure everything balances.
So the big realization was that the reasoning skill is transferable.
Yes. They realize that reasoning isn't domain-specific. If the model can reason through a software bug to find the cause, it can reason through a trade discrepancy to find the missing cent. It's not about knowing Python, it's about the ability to follow a logical chain.
That is a profound shift. It's moving from creative AI to logical AI. And the report says they were actually surprised by the results.
That stood out to me too. Banks do not like to be surprised. They love predictability. But they found the AI could handle trade reconciliation with the same proficiency it showed in software engineering.
So we've gone from can it write code to can it audit the books? And the answer seems to be yes, which it naturally raises the big question, the multi-billion-dollar question everyone listening is probably thinking right now.
The headcount question.
Exactly. If I'm a junior accountant at Goldman, or I work in compliance, am I packing my box today?
It's the first place our minds go, right? The robots are taking our jobs.
Yeah.
But if you look at their official stance, it's a bit more nuanced, maybe a bit more calculating.
Argenti said it's premature to expect job losses for current workers.
Premature is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence. It's not a no, but let's look at their stated philosophy. They call it injecting capacity.
Injecting capacity. That sounds a lot like corporate speak for, we want to do more work without hiring more people.
That is exactly what it is. And to be fair, from a shareholder perspective, that's the holy grail. The idea is the AI handles the sheer volume, the process-intensive stuff, so the bank can process more trades and onboard more clients without the current staff drowning.
So, in theory, better client experience, faster turnaround.
Right. And Argenti argues that translates to more business. If you can onboard a massive client in 2 days instead of 2 weeks because an AI did the background check instantly, that's a huge competitive advantage.
But we have to connect this to what the CEO, David Solomon, said back in October 2025. Because that gives us the real strategy here. It's not just about making life easier for current employees.
It does. Solomon was very clear. He said the bank is reorganizing around generative AI. And here's the kicker. Revenue is surging, the business is growing, but the strategy is to constrain headcount growth.
So the business gets bigger, the revenue gets bigger, but the number of employees stays flat.
Exactly. That is the definition of operating leverage. Historically, if a bank wanted to process 20% more transactions, they needed roughly 20% more back-office staff. That link is being broken.
So the losers here, at least at first, aren't the people working at Goldman today. It's the people who would have been hired next year.
That's the silent impact, the jobs that just never get posted. But the report also flags a group that is at risk right now. Third-party providers.
The outsourcers.
Right. Think about it. Goldman, like every big bank, uses an army of external contractors and service firms for overflow work, basic data entry, routine compliance checks.
And as this AI matures, Goldman explicitly said they could just cut them out.
Of course. If you have an internal digital coworker that costs a fraction of a contractor and works 24/7 without coffee breaks, why would you outsource?
That just ripples out through the whole economy. I mean, entire industries of B2B service providers exist to handle that overflow.
And that's why the market reaction has been so volatile. This isn't just bad news for a staffing agency, it's bad news for software companies.
Yeah, let's talk about that. The source mentioned a sharp sell-off among software firms.
They're calling it a potential SaaSocalypse.
A SaaS apocalypse. Okay, that is dramatic. But walk me through the logic. Why does Goldman building its own AI hurt a software company?
Well, think about the business model of the last 15 years. Software as a service, or SaaS. You buy a seat for Salesforce, a seat for Oracle, a seat for specialized accounting software. You pay per human head.
Right. More humans means more software licenses.
But if Goldman and Anthropic are building these custom autonomous agents that can handle the workflows internally, do you need as many seats of that expensive software?
If the agent is the interface,
Yeah.
you don't really need the dashboard anymore.
Exactly. If the AI can ingest the raw data and output the finished report, the tool in the middle becomes irrelevant. So investors are betting that value is shifting from the software application to the AI model itself.
It's a consolidation of power then. Instead of paying 10 different software vendors, Goldman just pays Anthropic and keeps the rest.
It absolutely is. And if you look at the future use cases Argenti mentioned, it is not stopping at accounting. The ambition is startling.
You dropped two other examples that really caught my eye. Employee surveillance and creating investment banking pitch books.
Two very different vibes there.
Yeah. Let's start with employee surveillance. The AI is watching you.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty dystopic.
It does, but in banking, compliance monitoring is a huge cost center. Banks spend billions trying to catch insider trading or fraud. Currently, that's just, sampling emails or looking for keywords.
Which is so inefficient, people use code words.
Highly inefficient. But if an autonomous agent can reason, it can scan every email, every chat log, every trade in real time. It can understand context. It can say, hey, this trader is chatting with a college friend about a merger that hasn't been announced, and the tone is weirdly secretive.
That's the holy grail of risk management. But it's also a total surveillance panopticon.
It is. But from the bank's perspective, avoiding $1 billion fine is worth the creepiness factor.
And then the second one, pitch books. For listeners who aren't in finance, what exactly is a pitch book?
So a pitch book is basically a sales deck. It's this massive 50 to 100 slide presentation that bankers use to win deals. It's full of market analysis, valuation models. It's dense stuff.
And from what I hear, they are notoriously painful to create.
It is the rite of passage for every junior investment banker. It is the hazing ritual of Wall Street. You stay up till 4 a.m., fueled by bad coffee, just moving logos around on a slide and formatting charts. It's grueling, repetitive, high-stress work.
And Argenti is saying, we can get an agent to do that.
Imagine the efficiency. Instead of 3 analysts working all weekend, a senior banker just says, hey, agent, pull the last 10 years of M&A data for retail, filter for deals over $500 million, format it in our standard Goldman Blue template, and draft a valuation. And it's done in minutes.
That changes the entire culture of the bank.
It does. We are witnessing a shift from Goldman just testing AI to integrating it into the actual backbone of the bank. This isn't a side project anymore. They are taking that high-volume, time-intensive work and handing it to the machine.
So what does this all mean? If we zoom out, we're seeing a real transition from AI as a creative tool, write me a poem, to AI as a logical worker.
That is the synthesis. For so long, the narrative was AI creates content. The new narrative, the one Goldman is betting on, is AI executes logic. It reasons, it follows rules. And in a highly regulated industry like banking, being able to follow the rules without getting tired is infinitely more valuable than writing a sonnet.
And for you, the listener, this matters because Goldman Sachs is so often the bellwether.
They are a blueprint. If they can successfully constrain headcount while growing their business with these models, every other large organization, insurance, healthcare, law, is going to try and follow suit. We're looking at a future where companies cap their size but uncap their output.
Which brings us to our final thought, and this is something that's been nagging at me since we started reading this. It's the human cost, but maybe not in the way people usually mean.
Go on.
If all the grunt work goes away, if the trade reconciliation and the pitch book creation are handed to an autonomous agent, how does the next generation of bankers actually learn?
The apprentice paradox.
Exactly. No one loves making pitch books at 4 in the morning. But that's how you learn the business. That's how you learn what a company is worth, how you learn where the bodies are buried in the ledgers. You learn by doing the boring stuff.
It's a huge structural problem. If you remove the bottom rung of the ladder, that entry-level work where you cut your teeth, How do you ever climb to the top? How do you become the managing director who creates the strategy if you never did the grunt work to understand the mechanics?
You can't just simulate experience.
No, and you have to wonder, in 10 years, will we have a gap in senior leadership? A generation of bankers who know how to prompt an AI but don't know if the AI is telling the truth because they never did the math by hand
That's
themselves.
the question Goldman and everyone else is going to have to answer very, very soon. The efficiency is undeniably coming, but the education gap might just be the hidden cost.
Indeed. It's a brave new world for the digital coworker and a confusing one for the human apprentice.
That's it for this deep dive into the new world of autonomous banking. Thanks for listening.
Stay curious.